was so funny. I was looking at like your long list and like your ongoing work, and I got to video games. I was like, she's Cammy from Street Fighter. Oh my god!
I am, darling.
Why? No, I can't look at the camera anymore. Hello there, fellow anime enthusiasts. I'm Brianna Lawrence, fandom editor over at The Mary Sue, and I'm collaborating with my pals over at Funimation for this Women's History Month series of interviews. We started the series with Monica Rael, followed it up with Amaris Quinones, and I knew we had to close out on a phenomenally high note. Enter Caitlyn Glass, who's been an amazing talent in the industry since the early 2000s. But honestly, where do I even begin when it comes to talking about Caitlyn Glass? Winry, Haruhi, Mina, Cammy, Petra. Actually, Petra makes me sad, so let's not go there. Please respect my privacy at this time, thanks. Honestly, if I list off all the credentials, we'll run out of time with this interview, so I'm gonna cut it short right here. Except for the quick fangirl cheering about her being Horimiya's ADR director, because we gotta talk about Horimiya as much as possible. That being said, I'm thrilled to introduce everyone to the one and only Caitlyn Glass. So excited to do this interview with you for Women's History Month at the Mary Sue. After I get finished calming down because you did the Cammy voice, and I'm like, Cammy's my girl, okay? Cammy and Chili are my girls, and I was like, I'm gonna, okay.
Their booties and then thick thighs.
I swear, Chili, oh my goodness. I'm so glad I like So, first things first, how did you discover anime?
Ooh, how did I discover it? So I started watching anime before I knew that's what it was, and I think that may be that may be the case with a lot of anime fans, though I imagine that's probably they were watching Pokemon or something and they didn't know, but I'm kind of older than that. So for me, I was watching a show called Grimm's Fairytales, and it used to be on Nickelodeon in the afternoons. And
oh my gosh, my wife used to watch that because
I just loved it. It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And only after I was already in the industry and I was talking about that show that I used to like, my friend goes, "That's anime. I worked on that." And my friend Tony Oliver, who's a director.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was one of the first things that he did in industry. I'm like, you're kidding me. So I was watching anime and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, we were looking through like the Amazon Prime list, and I think like the Snow White one is there or something. And my wife was like, I used to watch that. And I'm like, that was anime? I just thought it was a show on Nickelodeon.
I need to go back and look for it. Then after that, I had some friends in theater when I was in high school who got really into Sailor Moon. And so they were kind of introducing me to what it looked like and the art before I started seeing the show when it aired on Toonami, when Toonami was an afternoon thing. And that's when I was in high school. So then I was obsessed. I was obsessed with Sailor Moon. Love your shirt. And that's when you would spend all your time like searching through GeoCities just to find scans from art books and drool over them. That was my life.
That was GeoCities was my life too. I wrote an article about like old school anime, and I'm like, you guys don't realize that my only source was popping in an AOL CD and getting the internet to work, and then like going on GeoCities and seeing like the Gundam Wing fan site page that someone made that had information that might be accurate. There was no way to know because it was the 90s.
Yeah. And I guess when I became more of a fan in earnest would have been in college. So in college, I spent all my time working on my degree, which is in theater. And the rest of my time was at church doing ministry stuff. And like, there's nothing wrong with either of those two things. But, you know, acting used to be a hobby and now it is my life and would be my livelihood. So I didn't really have an escape. Somewhere in my second to last year of school, I'm like, I need to do something for fun or I'm going to lose my dang mind. Because plenty of anime was on TV at that time, but I was always rehearsing. Like whenever it was on television, I was at school in class or at rehearsal. So I'm like, I used to like anime though. And I remember walking into a Suncoast and picking up, oh gosh, what is that fabulous magazine? They don't print it here anymore.
Oh my gosh.
It's big. Was it not Otaku USA?
Oh, New Type. Is it
yes,
New
New Type. Thank you. No offense to Otaku USA. No offense. You weren't the magazine I was looking for. Yeah, New Type. And back then you could get a DVD in there that would have a couple episodes of a show. So I was like, let me just take this home and see what I think of it. And I'm like, oh yeah, anime's cool. This will be my hobby. And luckily, yeah, that didn't last too long. You see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
There was a Blockbuster when those still existed near where I lived, and that particular one had tons and tons of anime. So I could see whatever I could on television if I caught it, but otherwise I could just go to this Blockbuster and just rent and watch to my heart's content. And one day while I was watching something, I watched all the way through the credits and saw that Funimation was based where I lived. It's in Fort Worth, Texas. I'm like, but that's where I am. Like, well, that's pretty cool. And then through some other connections from my church, of all places, I met a friend who worked at Funimation, who gave me a tour. And on the tour, I was introduced to Eric Vale, a director, and he put me in the booth on the spot and had me audition. And a few days later, I started recording on episode 1 of Case Closed. And that was in January of 2004. I told you I'm old.
Wow.
I'm not really
that's incredible.
Old. I'm just like old. Most of the fans that I meet at cons are like 13. So
yeah,
that's what I mean.
I'm in my late 30s, and my wife and I sometimes have an Artist Alley booth, and like we'll talk to people and they're like, well, I gotta go back home and get some sleep to study for this exam. And I'm like, oh, that's all right. There's school children who are way younger than me in this universe. So
anyway, that's how I started. Sorry, I kind of
awesome. No, actually, that's answers the second question. Well, not the second question, like the third question. Because it was like, how did you get in the industry? And it's like you just so happened to live in the city where Funimation is, and you didn't know it. That's awesome. What is it about anime that draws you to it?
I like that. Well, in animation in general, I like that anything is possible. Now that CG has progressed so far, you can see it in live action films as well. But with the things that can be drawn, if you can imagine it, it can be reality.
That's true.
And I've always been attracted to cartoons and animation my entire life. And in fact, when I was younger, I wanted to be an animator, but I do not have any sort of drawing artistic skill whatsoever. I tried. It's just, no, not in the cards for me. I think what's so great about anime is that they're unafraid to have female protagonists and female driven stories. So as a young woman, I was immediately drawn to that, I think. And then just that it looks different. And I, as a young kid, was also very interested in Japan as a country. I had some relatives that went to visit there when I was maybe 8 or so, and they came back with toys and things from there for me. Like an origami book was a really favorite present of mine when I was young. So I was fascinated with Japanese culture. So I already liked Japan and I already liked cartoons. You put those two together, I'm an anime fan.
that makes a lot of sense. And it's something I try and figure out too, but you're right. Everything in anime is possible. And there's the potential for it to mean something else. Like, I really loved Utena, and it's like the symbolism of this actually means this, but we're doing it with like sword fights and dueling. And it's like, this looks like a mech anime, but actually it's about like, childhood, adolescence, and growing up, and you're like, but with cool robots. Got it.
I think anime is unafraid to tell stories that are based on concepts or ideas, feelings, and things that you can't touch, and give them some sort of visualization, where a lot of Western storytelling is about more concrete things.
So because I'm watching Horimiya, and it does this thing where like the color changes in the background when they're feeling something. And it's like, I can't explain how to explain that, but that is definitely a feeling on screen right now.
And it resonates with you.
Yeah.
And, anime, while of course we know it's a medium, not a genre, so there are anime that are better for young children and others that are not for young kids. But I think it was so great to see something like Sailor Moon, even as watered down as it was when it got to us here in the States.
Yeah.
And we connected with the emotional parts of it. I really think so.
Yeah.
And some things that were maybe, if it would never have been made in a Western cartoon, because someone would assume that that's too much above us. You know, they want this cartoon is going to be for 10-year-olds and everything's got to fit in this box. And there are things in Sailor Moon that are totally beyond that. And, you know, it's been a while since I've gone back to watch it, but I would really like to. I reread the manga just a couple years ago. And I was like, oh man, this is it means so much more now that I'm older.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
But it could still reach you when you're young, because I think that the Japanese are not afraid to be like, and this thing is just going to be about love. Like, just love. Like,
It's like watching Yuri on Ice. The ice skating means love. Oh my goodness. Let's see, because we're answering questions while we're talking, which is amazing. You've been in the industry for many years. How has it changed since you first got started?
Well, it's grown, obviously. That would be the obvious answer. I'd say I'm seeing a lot more opportunity for women in the the production side, so the non-actor side of things.
Oh,
being
that's exciting.
Yeah, being directors and engineers, producers and writers. Not to say that they couldn't have done it earlier, but just now that there is more work, that's more opportunity for all, and a lot of that work is going to women, and I think that's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What else am I seeing changing? I'm not sure.
No, that's actually is very like a legit answer, because you have been here long enough to see it go from like, I don't know, I always felt like anime when I was watching it was like there were 3 people involved, and I only had 2 friends who watched it, and that was about it. And we kind of thought like this would just be this small little thing that will stay in this little bubble, and we will never see it again as adults. And now as an adult, we're like, nah, it's everywhere. It's all over the place.
Yeah. I think Japan has also caught on to the fact that there's a market for what they produce over here.
Oh, yeah.
So certain shows, things like My Hero Academia, can really appeal to everyone, not just to anime fans or Japanophiles or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's helping. And I appreciate that as someone who's been working in the industry for almost 2 decades, because it starts to like legitimize my job in the eyes of the grand public. I mean, I already felt like I have a good job. I get paid. I love it. I have fun. What more could I ask for, right? But it is nice when someone goes, oh, and what do you do? And you say, well, I do this, and I'm in such and such show. And they can be like, my kid watches that on Cartoon.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, oh, cool, great. That's not something I've heard before now. So
yeah, you can go into like a grocery store and see like the trading cards from series, and you're like me and my wife will go to like Target, and I'm like, wow, there's actually My Hero Academia merchandise. Who would have thunk?
The other day, someone drove down my street blaring the Attack on Titan theme song.
Yes!
Like, oh, do you live around here?
The theme song choice right away. I don't want to sit next to them in traffic, but that's okay. So you already addressed that like more women are doing more outside. And you're doing it too, because you do script writing, you do ADR work. I was going to ask if your voice acting helps when you're doing all of your other things, like the directing side and the writing side of things.
Absolutely. As a writer, which I haven't done in a number of years, once I became full-time director at Funimation, I didn't really have time to write anymore. But before that happened, I wrote quite a bit. While you're writing, you can perform your adaptations to make sure that they fit the mouth as best. I mean, all writers do this, but I think that writers who have been actors beforehand, they kind of know some tricks and like, oh, if you say it this way or say it that way. So that's how it helps with writing. In directing, it certainly helps because you know how the actor's feeling in the booth. There's a lot going through their head. There may be a preconceived notion that for this type of work we have studied and rehearsed just like for a play or a film, and that's not the case at all. Actors don't know what they're doing until they get there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now, if they have a subscription or whatever and the episode is aired in Japanese, they could have watched that on their own if they wanted to, but they're not required to. And we don't send them a script. We can't really do that. We don't want the materials, out. Right. So seriously, they get in the booth, they see a line, and then within 30 seconds to a minute, they're then performing it in English. That's how much time they have to make.
Wow.
Yeah.
And some of those lines are very like heavy emotion, and oh my, I can't imagine, like, hold on, cat, please. You can't jump on the table, mommy's working. But yeah, as different series I've watched, there's so many moments where it's like, God, that's so emotional, and my brain's like, they must have studied that scene like for so many hours to get like that emotional impact, and to find out, oh no, they walked in a booth and they were like, here, you got to do the screaming, crying.
It's almost instantaneous. That doesn't mean that they'll only do it once. They'll perform, and then we will review it and move things around, make some changes if we need. So sometimes we do those big emotional scenes 2 or 3 times to get it just right. But yeah, so I know what that feels like when you as an actor, you're concerned because you're kind of the policeman for your own voice and your talent and what you put out there. So you're living in your head a little bit like, oh, am I doing it right? Am I going to make the director happy? Is this the right? Am I bringing my character to life properly? And then they're also trying to hear the Japanese, read the English, make decisions, and then go. So so I get it. And just to be there and be able to support them and let them know that we're a team and I want them to succeed as much as they do. And we're going to bring the story to life together. It's really rewarding.
That's awesome. Kat, please, I'm begging you. So since we are celebrating Women's History Month, who are some women who inspire you? Real or fictional?
That's awesome. I'll say real, and it's from within the industry. When I was quite young, my favorite Disney movie, well, it's still a favorite Disney movie, was The Little Mermaid. Came out when I was a little thing, just like you. So it sounds like we're like the same age.
Yeah.
For me, being a red-haired, pale-skinned, blue-eyed kid, it's weird to think that I didn't see myself in stuff until Ariel. Like, she came out and she's kind of a weirdo, and and she likes singing, but she's got red hair. I'm like, I have red hair, and it's weird, but you do kind of get picked on for that when you're a kid. So I really connected to her. And then so much so that I was interested in finding out like who does the voice. Like, that's when I learned like there's a person that does a voice. And but the way I found it out was I was in the bookstore with my mom. It was a Christian bookstore, and so Jodie Benson, the voice of the Little Mermaid, had recorded an album of children's music, like Christian children's Bible story songs. And on the front of the tape, this was even pre-CD, okay? On the front of the tape said, from Jodie Benson, the voice of the Little Mermaid. And that's when it clicked, and I'm like, wait, what? So now I understood that there's a person that makes Ariel talk. And not only that, she loves Jesus like me. And that was like,
I'm sorry.
That's really cool, man.
That's awesome.
It's really cool. It may sound weird, but like for an actor, it's really wonderful to find.
I love the logic of children. It's so pure, and they don't even think. They're just like, no, this is what I think. That's how it is, and that's it.
So early on, like, she was just a big inspiration for me, just to pursue the thing that I love and not be ashamed of who I am and what I believe. And a handful of years ago, I accidentally ran into her at an airport.
Accidentally?
Yeah. She was coming to this. I was going to like Milwaukee, I think, for a convention, and she was coming to Milwaukee for a concert. to perform in the concert. And all of the baggage was backed up, and there was a man waiting there with a sign for her that said Jodie Benson. And I'm like, I wonder if that's like the Jodie Benson. And I turn around, and like some kind of Disney princess, here she comes down an escalator down to where the baggage, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? I'm like trying not to cry. And the other voice actors who are with me are like, well, you have to go say hello. And I'm like, no, I mean, I don't want to be that person.
But you want to be that person.
They're like, Caitlyn, it's the Little Mermaid. I'm like, you're right. I gotta. So I did. I went and introduced myself and kind of got to tell her how much she inspired me and why. And that same weekend, I went and saw her concert. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So she's always been an inspiration. And then I guess in more recent times, well, still whatever, it was since becoming a voice actor, Lucy Christian, another voice actor, has always inspired me. Back in the few months between when I decided I'm going to make this my hobby and oops, it's my job now. I was watching, like I said, whatever I could get my hands on, and her voice always stood out to me in the titles that I was renting. So I'm like, what a neat person. And then to meet her and work with her as an actor,
that's amazing.
As a director, her work ethic, her talent, also her faith, again, inspiring. And she's a really wonderful woman that I'm proud to call a colleague and friend now. So
that's amazing. That's awesome. That's the small world after all. That's beautiful. One of the things I like to stress as a marginalized voice in this space is to celebrate yourself. So how does Caitlyn celebrate Caitlyn?
Man, that's something we've all had to kind of learn in the last year, isn't it?
I know.
I think that I'm a bit of a workaholic, and it's hard when the thing that used to be your hobby is now your job.
Oh yeah.
So that's become tough. And only since the pandemic have I kind of made room for myself to find another hobby, I guess, because I have the time now. It sounds
I cannot play this interview to my wife because she's telling me the exact same thing, and I'm like fighting her on it. She's like, we should have hobbies for fun, and I'm like, no.
So it's been good. I mean, normally, I guess the time that I've gotten back, because I'm still working from home, there was just a little bit of time at the beginning, and I feel very blessed to be able to work. There was a lull at early pandemic, but once we figured out how to record from home, it's
I know. You guys have been on it. Yeah.
But I don't have to commute anymore. So that does mean there's a couple more hours every day that I can do something else with. So I've started training. Like, I'm not athletic whatsoever, but I realized that taking that time out for myself to make my body feel better is good. And it's been great. I've only been doing it for 2 months, and I just have a more positive outlook. I just make tiny progresses is all that it takes. And so that's helpful. And then, due to a friend, I discovered the world of K-dramas.
Oh no. Oh no.
And my life will never be the same.
And you can never recover after that, because I have a friend.
It's great.
I think we all have a friend who started K-drama, and then suddenly we're like, 500 episodes later, and we're just very invested. And
I look forward to being that friend for someone else.
We have a friend, and I was like, what is all this art I'm seeing on Twitter? What is this? And they're like, you want to discover K-drama? And I'm like, I don't know. Do I? And then suddenly you're like, yeah, I'm still watching the show. Yeah.
It's been really great. It's been great to take in stories and enjoy them, so that otherwise the only stories I'm taking in are
the ones for work. Yeah.
Yeah, because when I spend all day watching things on screen, it used to be that I don't want to watch more stuff. So I don't even watch that many movies. I'm really behind in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're catching up.
Guys, don't worry.
Yeah, I'm tired of not being able to talk about WandaVision. So I got to get through the rest of these things so I can.
Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, yes.
But K-dramas have really helped, because it's just like, oh, here's another story, and I can get lost in it. And because it's from another country and it's in another language, I'm not comparing myself to the actors. I'm not imagining. Yeah, it's hard when this is your business to just truly be able to sink into a story and not think about how much did it cost to make that? Does that person have plastic surgery? What would I have to do to be the Black Widow? You know, like these aren't things that I think of when I'm watching K-dramas. I'm just like, wow, it's so romantic. Like that's
and beautiful, and the costumes and the set pieces, and
so I can really get lost in it. And I think that that has been a good self-care, self-love thing for me in the last year.
My friend will be satisfied with that. She's gonna be like, Sebri, K-dramas, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just not gonna send you this video. Since we are winding down on time, I'll get to the last one. I'm not sure if you realize it, but you are definitely inspiring other women who love this industry. What advice do you have for future voice actresses and female creatives looking to break into the industry?
Wow, awesome. Okay, well, I'd say that now is a great time because there's so much more opportunity, and I don't see anime going away anytime soon.
Yeah, that is true.
I'd say that it is helpful to diversify yourself, so make yourself well versed in all areas of this industry. So I mean, maybe you are an actor, so what you want to do is voice act. Cool. As soon as you get your foot in the door there, like just start learning about all the things that you can within the industry, because you never know when an opportunity might come up. And also just the way casting kind of works, it'll ebb and flow. You could show up on the scene and be like the hot ticket for a few months, but then maybe not have anything for a long time. So if anime specifically is what you want to do, then you really need to get involved in more than just one aspect of it. And then if voice acting is what you want to do, then I would say just be sure that you know you want to do it because you want to be an actor and you have to tell stories. If it's coming from a place of you just really love anime and want to be a part of it, which I get, then maybe that is something more like fan dubbing that you could do as a hobby from home. But if you really want to pursue it, then you should study the art and the craft of acting.
Absolutely.
And show up to be a voice actor with all of these acting tools under your belt, because when you only have your voice to tell the story, you're going to need all of that other expertise to pull from.
Definitely. I love that.